my name is Teacher Joy and I'm here today to talk to you about pairs of angles, which helps you a lot in your concerns in geometry. When lines intersect, they create special relationships between the angles that they form. Once we understand these relationships, then we can use them to find the measure of angles formed by intersecting lines. And besides, engineers use angle measurements to construct buildings, bridges, houses, monuments, and etc. Thus, it is very essential to learn pairs of angles. Therefore, the objectives of this lesson: number one is name and define different pairs of angles. Next is determine complementary, supplementary, adjacent, linear, and vertical angles and their measures. Then the last one, of course, do the task accurately and patiently. There are different ways pairs of angles may be classified. A pair of angles may be related on the basis of the sum of their angle measures or of their positions. Based on the sum of angle measures, angle pairs can be classified as either supplementary or complementary. First, we will have to define complementary angles, supplementary angles, adjacent, and vertical angles. Let us try first complementary angles. Complementary angles are two angles whose measures have sum of 90 degrees. In this illustration, I have here two examples of complementary angles. Based on the definition, complementary angles are angles whose measures have a sum of 90 degrees. So here in the first example, number one, 60-degree and 30-degree angles. So it is, by definition, complementary angles has a total of 90 degrees. So therefore, when you sum up 30 plus 60 is equal to 90 degrees. So therefore, the two angles is equal to 90 degrees. Thus, this represents complementary angles. Then another example is number 2, 59 degrees and 31 degrees. So when you add them up, 59 plus 31 is 90 degrees. So therefore, this angle shows complementary angles. Then let's proceed to supplementary angles. Supplementary angles, by definition, are two angles whose measure have a sum of 180 degrees. I'll repeat, for the complementary angles, the sum of their measures of the angles is equal to 90 degrees. And this time, supplementary angles are angles whose measures have a sum of 180. So again, I have here two examples. One is 130 plus 50 is equal to 180. So at the same time, 130 degrees and 150 degrees is equal to 180. Thus, 180 degrees shows a supplementary angles, and it also shows that the two angles form a straight angle. Then next, we have here another example, 70 degrees and 110 degrees. So 110 plus 70 is again equal to 180 degrees. Then let's proceed to adjacent angles. Adjacent angles, by definition, are angles which have a common side and a common vertex, but no interior points in common. So I'll repeat, these are angles which have a common side and a common vertex, but there are no interior points in common. Let us try to look at how adjacent angles looks like. So we have here, again, there are two examples. So in the illustration, we have angles 1 and angles 2. The common side which is being illustrated here is side BD, which is uh, side of angle CBD, and this is also one of the sides of angle ABD. So therefore, this ray or this line indicates that this is the common side of the two angles, angles 1 and angles 2. So when we say adjacent angles, these are angles that share common vertex and share common side. So the common vertex of this angle is vertex B. Okay, let's proceed to another example. This is example number 2. So if you have seen in the illustration, there are three angles illustrated: angle J, angle O, and angle Y. So let us try to identify which of these angles are adjacent angles. In this illustration, by definition, adjacent angles share common vertex and common side. So with this example, angle J and angle Y does not represent adjacent angles because there is an interior point between the two angles, which is O. So therefore, angle J and angle Y are not adjacent, while angle J and angle O are adjacent angles, and at the same time, angle O and angle Y is another adjacent angles, because angles J and angle O, they are considered to be adjacent angles because they share common side. So we have here this side here. Then for angle O and angle Y, they are also considered adjacent angles because they share common side. And all these three angles share a common vertex. And these three angles shows a straight angle. Angle J plus angle O plus angle Y. Of course, this is, although there is no measurement, but it shows a straight angle. So a straight angle measures 180 degrees. Then let's proceed. Vertical angles. Vertical angles are two non-adjacent. So just recently, we are talking about adjacent angles, wherein these angles share common vertex and share common side. So in this vertical angles are two non-adjacent, meaning wala magtapad, wala magsunod nga angles formed by two intersecting lines. So let us see examples of vertical angles. So we have here, there are four illustrated angles: angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, and angle 4. So it is said here, vertical angles are angles opposite to each other. So let us try to identify which angles are opposite to each other. We have angles 1 and angles 3 are opposite to each other, and they are adjacent, non-adjacent. So meaning, what sila nagsunod? Because angles 1 and angles 3, there is an angle between it, which is angle 2. And at the other side, angle 1 and angle 3 are non-adjacent because there is an angle 4 between these angles. So therefore, angles 1 and angles 3 are opposite to each other. Therefore, they are considered to be vertical angles. Then angle 2 and angle 4 also shows that they are vertical angles. In between angles 2 and angle 4, there is, at the right side of angle 2, we have angle 3 in between. So therefore, there is no common side shared by angles 2 and angles 4. And for angles 2 and angle 4, to the left of angle 2, there is an angle 1 which is in between them. Therefore, they are non-adjacent and they do not share, though they share the same vertex, but they do not share common side, right? So let's proceed to another example. So again, we have here angles 1, 2, 3, and 4, but it is very easy to identify which angles are not adjacent because they are labeled in the same color. and those labeled with the same color are considered to be vertical angles. So angles 1 and angles 3 are vertical angles because they are opposite angles and they are labeled yellow. And for angles 2 and 4, they're also labeled a light blue. So therefore, they are vertical angles. And in the illustration also, angles 1 is equal to angle 3 and angles 2 is equal to angle 4. But later on, I will show you a postulate that shows how comes that angle 1 and angle 3 becomes equal and how angles 2 and angle 4 becomes equal. Okay, let's proceed to linear pair postulates. So just recently I told you that I have to show you that there is a postulate regarding linear pairs and um, vertical angles. Okay, linear pair postulate states that if two angles form a linear pair, then they are supplementary. So if we will have to recall back the definition of a supplementary angle, the total of the measures of the angles is equal to 180 degrees. So that is supplementary. So in this postulates, if two angles form a linear pair, then they are supplementary angles. So meaning, if there are two or three angles that forms a linear pair, then the total of their measures is equal to 180 degrees, then that is a supplementary angles. So they form a linear pair. But before expounding about linear pairs, let us try to know first what does postulate mean. Okay. Postulate means to suggest a theory or idea as a basic principle from which a further idea is formed or developed. Or another, we have a statement that is accepted as being true and that is used as a basis of the theory, an argument, and so on and so forth. By the way, can you name an example of a theory or a postulate? Even in science, there are a lot of theories that are being applied in science, in mathematics. Okay, so to relate in science, I will give you an example of a theory which is being applied. It is by Claudius Ptolemy, and it is known as Ptolemaic system. This theory states that or believes that the Earth was at the center of the universe and that the sun and the planets orbited the Earth. So that was the Ptolemaic system, and that was authored by Claudius Ptolemy. And that is an example of a theory because a postulate is uh, it is a statement that is being accepted as true and that is used as the basis of a theory. So mahimo na siyang theory. So mo nang I am giving you an example of a theory which is based on the Ptolemaic system. So let's go back to linear pairs. I hope you understand about postulates. So linear pairs are two adjacent. So meaning, nagtapad, nagsunod. Adjacent angles that creates a line. So meaning, there is a common side that divides the adjacent angles. And thus, the two angles are supplementary. So when you add up the total of the angles of the two adjacent angles shows that it is equal to 180, and that is a linear pair. Okay, so I have here two examples. One is 119 degrees and the adjacent angle is 61 degrees. So if you add 119 plus 61 degrees, that is equal to 180 degrees. So therefore, the two angles are considered to be linear pair because it gives the total of 180 degrees, which is a supplementary or supplementary angle, or which is the measure of a supplementary angle. Then another example, we have 145 degrees and 35 degrees. If we try to plus or to add 145 and 35, that will give you 180 degrees. So therefore, 145 degrees and 35 degrees are considered to be linear pair. So I hope I am understood in that linear pair. Let's proceed. Let's proceed to vertical angle postulate. So vertical angle postulate states that vertical angles are congruent. So when you say congruent, they are equal in measure. So they are equal in measure of each given angle. So we have in the illustration, we have angles A, B, C, and D. And it is very easy to recognize which angles are congruent because they are labeled with uh, one bar, and the other congruent angles are two bars. So we have angles A and angle B are considered to be congruent, and there are vertical angles. So by definition, vertical angles are opposite angles. Diba? Vertical angles are opposite angles. So it is always understood that when you have seen a vertical angles, they have the same measure, or they are always congruent. So in the illustration, angle A and angle B are congruent, angle C and angle D are also congruent. So let's proceed to a more complicated example. So we have here, based on the figure below, find the values of x and y in the given figure. So aside from, we have to identify whether they are adjacent or they are vertical angles, we will solve also values of unknown angles. So let us try looking at the figure. So we have here, there are how many angles? Let us try to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are 5 angles, but it has only one angle with given measurement, which is 50 degrees angle. Angle X is unknown, angle Y is unknown, and we have here another angle which is labeled with a perpendicular symbol, or a 90-degree angle symbol. So we have, let us try to solve for the value of X, because that is what is being asked in the problem. So our task is to find the value of X and the values of angle Y. So if you try to look at the illustration here, this illustration, which is labeled with a right angle symbol, meaning since right angle, this measures 90 degrees. And the next angle is angle X, which is supposed to be unknown. And the next angle is, that is a vertical angle of 50-degree angle. So since we have just know that vertical angles are always congruent, or they have equal in measure, so therefore this angle here, which is vertical to 50 degrees is measures also 50 degrees, right? So there are two known measurements already, the 90 degrees and this part here, which is 50 degrees angle. So therefore, ang problema na lang nato is only the measure of uh, X, angle X. So try to solve. Let us try to solve. We have X, or pwede po atong unahon ang 90 degrees. So we will have to arrange them. 90 degrees plus X plus 50 degrees equals 180. Because this is a straight angle, or this is supplementary. Therefore, 90 plus X plus 50 is equal to 180. Let us combine, or let us add 90 plus 50, that is 140. Or X is equal to 180 minus 90 minus 50 degrees. So, nganong nag-minus man ta? Uh, we apply the minus operation because we wanted that all these numerical values here at the left side of the equation should be transferred to the right side of the equation so that x, or the unknown, will be the only letters in the equation that should be left at the left side. So therefore, uh, to transpose 90 and 50 degrees to the right side, you should have to subtract this one so that this will become 0. So what are you doing at the left side of the equation should be done also at the right side of the equation. So x is equal to 180 minus 90 minus 50. So since negative 90 and 90 and 50 have the same sign, so therefore you have to sum them up. 90 plus 40 is 50 is 140. So therefore 180 minus 40. So therefore x is equal to 40. So when you add 90 plus 40 plus 50, diba, that is 180. So therefore, angles 90 degrees and angle x and this 50-degree angle are considered to be supplementary angles. Then let's proceed to finding the value of angle y. So angle y, there are only two angles at the right side of the supplementary. These are the supplementary angles, or to the right side of the vertical line. So 50 degrees and angle y. Therefore, 50 degrees plus y is equal to 180. So therefore, y is equal to 180 minus 50, and that is 130. So therefore, the measure of angle y is 30 degrees. So, karon na natay value sa x o sa angle y. So, I hope makamaon na mo solve for the unknown angles. Using the different postulates that we have just discussed, it's either the postulate for linear pair or the other way around, the vertical angle postulates. So, let's try another example. Find the value of angle 1 and angle 2. So, if you can see here in the illustration, angle 1 is labeled with a right angle symbol, and angle 2 is unknown, and the last angle is 30 degrees. So, therefore, to find the value of angle 1, of course, since it is being illustrated with a right angle symbol, therefore, the measure of angle 1 is 90 degrees. And for angle 2, since this is a straight line, meaning that three angles being presented here shows supplementary angles, and are therefore the total of the three angles is equal to 180. So therefore, naanay measures angle 1, which is 90 degrees, and the remaining angle is angle 2 na lang because there is also a 30 degrees. So 180 minus 90, so the right side of the perpendicular line here is 90 degrees. So therefore, 90 minus 30 is 60. Therefore, the measure of angle 2 is equal to 60 degrees. Therefore, angle 1 is equal to 90 degrees and angle 2 measures 60 degrees. Next example, finding linear pairs and vertical angles. So, does this example shows vertical angles or linear pairs? I hope you will answer linear pairs. Of course, because I am explaining, or I have discussed already in the previous slides. So this is an example of a linear pair. 8x degree and x degree. Therefore, they are all unknown. There is an unknown measurement. So we do not know how much is the measure of 8x degrees and of course x degree, or angle x and angle 8x. So let's proceed to computation. So we have already identified that this example shows a linear pair and not a vertical angle example. So we have here, this is a linear pair example. So since 8x and angle x represents linear pair. Thus, linear pair postulate states that uh, two angles form a linear pair, then they are supplementary. So therefore, 8x plus angle x is equal to 180 because the measure of supplementary angle is 180 degrees. Thank you once again. I hope you enjoy learning while watching the video. God bless everyone.